Are you guys ready? All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to, we wanted to give a quick update on what we're seeing. We just got the new track at 5 o'clock and got an update, and we're going to speak to that here in just a second. I'm going to let somebody that's got a lot more experience in that than I do. The things that I want to make people aware of on the coast, especially in the Camden County area, in the Glenn County, on the earliest parts of the coast that the storm's going to hit. We have the potential now, as the storm's moved a little bit west, to have 55 to 60 mile an hour winds right on the coast and on the barrier islands. You'll see in the modeling that we have that the hurricane force winds have actually moved closer to the shore, which is concerning. The rain models changed a little bit for the better, but the problem we have is with the storm surge that we're expecting, and at some point we believe while the storm's off the coast of Georgia, we're going to have a couple of high tides the same time the storm's moving through, which is going to give us significant water flooding issues. Maybe not flash flooding now because of the amount of rainfall has decreased a little bit, but we certainly have the potential for some heavy flooding down there. And we just don't know where that's going to be right now. Just to go back on a few of the things that we do know, we're looking at a 4 to 7 foot storm surge, which is very high, higher than some of the more catastrophic storms that we've seen from a water perspective in the past. Even though the hurricane has been downgraded, it is picking up speed now and has moved a little closer to us, so it still causes us great concern, and we need people to evacuate. I know it's been pretty down there today. I know the track is showing it not hitting Georgia, but I think our modeling will show how close it is, and this is not a storm to mess with, as we have seen how deadly it was when it went across the Bahamas. The other thing that's concerning when you see the modeling to me is how close it gets to Savannah. Certainly our friends and neighbors in South Carolina and North Carolina are preparing for the hurricane to be even closer to them than it is to us, but it's getting very close to Savannah as it moves up. So we just need people to stay on point, heed the evacuation messages, and pay real close attention to that, and don't take any chances. I would tell you that we've still had great partnerships with FEMA. The Georgia Emergency Management Agency under Homer's leadership has been on top of things. We've got people, GEMA has people on the ground on the coastal counties. The governor's office does as well. So we're staying in contact with not only local emergency management officials, but elected officials and other people, just making sure that we're taking care of any concerns that we have down there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the meteorologist, let him go through the modeling, and then we can answer any questions you got. Just introduce yourself.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Will Langston. I'm the state meteorologist here at the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. Just want to show you the updated forecast track we've got for Dorian. I've got the windows zoomed in here on the coastal counties in Georgia. We've got the tropical storm force wind expected in blue. That'll start to move into Camden and Glenn counties tomorrow morning, late in the morning, 10 a.m. towards noon, and start to overspread the area, even move into some of the inland counties. The yellow ring is strong tropical storm force winds, which are 58 miles per hour and above. And you can actually see that they get very close to Camden, Glenn, and McIntosh counties, and then move on shore. This is expected early Thursday morning in Camden and Glenn and Liberty counties. But the hurricane force winds are now forecast to only be about 15 to 20 miles off of our coast. So any jog to the left that this hurricane track may end up taking would bring the hurricane force winds of 74 miles per hour and greater even closer to the shore. So it's a very close storm to the shore. We're going to see tropical storm force impacts, and I'm going to show you that in some of the modeling here. This is the latest European model for the wind speeds. We can see just how close this hurricane, which is still projected to be a hurricane maybe a Cat 2 or even a Cat 3, see how close it gets to our shoreline. We can get gusts of hurricane force without seeing those sustained winds. And we're talking about a 24 to 30 hour period from start to finish for the coastal counties in Georgia. Let me show you the forecast simulated radar as well. We see those rain bands start to move into the coastal counties tomorrow morning around noon, and then we'll see that rain just continuously from those outer bands throughout the day Wednesday and then into Thursday morning as well. We're hoping that all the hurricane impacts will move out by noon on Thursday. We are expecting 4 to 7 feet of storm surge above ground level. Like the governor mentioned, we have 2 tides, one in the early afternoon tomorrow and then another one in the early morning hours of Thursday. We're going to get significant storm surge moving in, and we don't know exactly when the highest totals from the storm surge will move into the counties, but if they are to coincide with the high tide, we could see some record-breaking flooding in several parts of the southeast counties tomorrow afternoon and also overnight into Thursday. Unless anything else, turn it over to you.
All right, I think that's all we got. Anybody got any questions for us? Yes, sir.
Question for you, Governor. Folks may be looking at this and they say, oh, well, it dropped down to a category 2. As you mentioned, it's a beautiful day. Why do I need to evacuate? Can you just kind of emphasize?
Well, look, I think that is what our struggle is. We're seeing that with our traffic counts. I'm hopeful that a lot of people are just waiting to leave tonight or first thing in the morning. If they're doing that, you know, I would urge them to get out early before this thing hits, and we'll get another update at 11 p.m. tonight. So I would tell people to follow us on social media and Gmail as well, and we'll keep updating people. You know, hopefully this storm will move back to the west. I mean to the east. But the last jog it had, it moved to the west. But the modeling, as Will was telling me, it can fluctuate a lot, and they like to give it a couple of cycles. But if for some reason the next cycle, 11, shows it bumping west again, and all of a sudden we were at 35 miles out, now we're going to be at 15 or 20, and it goes down to 10 or to 5. It just keeps moving the tropical storm inland, and you know, who knows where it goes from there when it gets up to the upper end of the Georgia coast. So, you know, we just want to reiterate there's a reason that we ordered the evacuation to keep people safe. It is not worth it to get stranded out there. Certain wind speeds, DOT has to do inspections before we can make bridges passable again. So it just creates a lot of issues for us being able to get to people if you have medical emergencies and things of that nature. So we just really want to encourage people to heed the evacuation that we have put out there. There's a reason we did that. And if you haven't moved yet, you know, please move tonight or first thing in the morning.
Governor, when we're talking about rising water and flooding and things like that, can you illustrate kind of some of the tangible effects that people who don't evacuate might see in their homes and in their areas?
Well, yeah. Well, it's like Homer, and Homer may want to speak to this, but he told me earlier, if water gets up to the bottom of a bridge, it's got to be inspected by an engineer before you can reopen it. So it creates issues for people getting back on to a barrier island or part of that low country down there on the coast. It creates people being able to get off of there after the storm, getting supplies over there, food, water, other things if you have power outages of things of that nature. If you have causeways that flood, which we have some that do, as Will was saying, we're looking at, you know, potential record-breaking flooding down there. Well, if a causeway is underwater, you can't get on or you can't get out if you have a medical emergency. And that's not to even talk about, you know, property damage and other issues you may have with your pets, with, you know, your property. It's just not worth staying there. You know, this thing's going to be out of here, Thursday afternoon, we think. So, you know, if you haven't moved, move in the morning. You can be back home Thursday afternoon if everything goes right, and we can get the bridges inspected and getting up and running. Did you want to add anything to that?
Speaking of storm surge, can you just talk about how even it being downgraded to a 2 or whatever, how that can actually trick people into thinking it's not as bad as far as storm surge, because it was such a powerful storm, the storm surge would be worse than it would be if it was a normal two.
Well, look, if you got property close to the beach and you have that kind of storm surge, it can certainly destroy your property, which I think, you know, if you're living there at the time, can cause issues. I don't know, Will, if you have anything else on that, but I mean, and certainly for people, you know, seeing pictures of people surfing in Florida, I mean, that is not a good idea right now. This storm is going to be on us very quickly. It'll be here in the morning, and that's the kind of things that we just want to avoid people. I mean, we do not want to have a death here in Georgia because of this storm or because of somebody not taking this seriously.
This has been, as far as I understand it, and I could be wrong, a slow-moving hurricane, right? Can you speak to how that can also add to the damage? As you mentioned, it's a lot of rain that we're expecting. It's moving slow. How can that be something that folks need to pay attention to?
Well, Director Bryson and I actually talked about that, the slow-moving storm. I may let him speak to that because I think this is a little bit unprecedented.
It really is a unique storm and how slow it has moved because truthfully it's sat for 2 days now without moving. And as the governor mentioned, it has downgraded a little bit in wind speed, but the expectations are that as it begins to move, it's going to be moving over warm water again, and it's going to potentially be building strength. So this storm could be more powerful when it reaches our coast than it currently is. And as the governor said, the track from this morning's forecast to this afternoon's forecast actually has moved it closer to our coastline. And when it comes to the evacuation, the only thing that I could add to that is that people that stay, not only are you going to be cut off, and there's going to be no stores, no place to go, your power's going to be out, but your city or counties, they're going to be cutting off the municipal water systems and the wastewater systems. So that's something you need to factor into your considerations if you really want to stay or not.
One more question for me. Now that we got you all back on camera, because we were discussing it when we were looking at the models, can we explain the two high tides coming in at the same time with the hurricane and how that's...
Let me let Will speak
Sure.
to that, and you can pull something.
So the storm surge is actually forecast to build up along the coast ahead of the actual storm arriving there. It's such a huge storm that as it spins counterclockwise, it's going to be pushing water up against the coast. And if that storm surge coincides with a high tide, we could see several feet of water above ground level that's usually dry. So the concern is if there's a 9-foot difference between a high tide and a low tide. So that makes a world of difference when you're talking about storm surge coming in. We just don't know where exactly that those will coincide, but we have 2 opportunities for them to coincide with a high tide tomorrow afternoon and then one again on Thursday morning.
You might want to speak to the storm, the last one we had so much damage, and then we were at low tide.
Yeah, we were. A lot of people are comparing this. People that were living on the coast over during Matthew and Irma. What's important to remember there, the storm surge predictions for those storms are very similar to this storm. However, the big difference there is naturally occurring high tides are ongoing right now. When we had those storms, our tides were running very low. We were running 6 and 7 foot tides compared to, as Will said, we're running 9+ tides now. And so that's an additional 2 feet there on top of the surge. And I can tell you from being with the governor down there yesterday and flying over the coast, just on high tide yesterday, just high tide without any influence from the storm, the marshes were pretty much underwater already without any storm surge. And if you take the tide, if people take the tide they saw yesterday, add about 4 feet to it, that's what they can expect.
Homer, do you mind just giving them an idea of what we're talking about when you've got even just a few inches of water in your home versus what we may actually be seeing with this storm? Because I think it'd be important to show, like, people may think, you know, they can put up sandbags and that will deal with it, or they can deal with maybe not having power for some time, but also property damage and water in your house, especially if you have a medical condition to deal with that.
The governor has mentioned this a couple of times. The reality is this. If you stay, there is nothing you can do to protect your property or save your property. The storm is going to do the damage it's going to do regardless of whether you're in your home or not. The only thing that you have done by staying there is increasing the probability or the chances that you could be injured or worse. And for what purpose is that risk? There really isn't a valid reason for anyone to do that. Err on the side of caution, leave, and we're going to be very diligent in making recommendations to the governor's office about getting people back in when it's safe to do that. We want you to be out and be safe, and then we're going to work really hard to get you back to your property so you can assess your damage or see if you have any damage. So please, serious considerations. If any of those areas down there that's under evacuation, you really need to give this serious consideration, and you should move out and watch what the storm does from afar.
All right, thank you, everybody.